Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure, half of a year, to talk about some of the key insights of this market. And I think as soon as we are talking about what really matters for the customers, we have so many marketing stacks everywhere. It's important to get the right people. And we get a great pleasure to get Scott Brinker. I think you're maybe as the father of the marketing stack. I know that we know you from Hotspot, from different roles, but today maybe it's important for our audience to give some words about what you are doing, and also we get the pleasure also to have Ralph Winsott, from chief editor from DAM News and director of Activo UK. So thank you all of you, and stage is yours, Scott. Maybe to first of all say to our audience what you are doing, because I think you changed a little bit the role since the last year. And especially to give you your insights about this. Sometimes some people are saying the crazy map, but I think it's a clear representation of what we see today in the market.
It is a crazy map, and it is a representation of what's happening in the market. Yeah, well, again, thank you for having me. Yeah, I've been at this intersection of marketing and technology essentially my whole career. I built a web development agency once upon a time. I built a SaaS company for interactive content, and then worked at HubSpot running their platform ecosystem for 8 years. I just left there last year. But sort of all along on that, I've been what I would call an armchair analyst, of the Martech space, just writing and speaking a lot about how marketing has been changing with these waves and waves of technology that enable marketing to do very different things than marketing once upon a time did. And so actually, after leaving HubSpot, I've now focused full time on just this role of being a Martech analyst and advisor. And even doing it full time, I can't keep up with everything that's happening.
We only have 24 hours in a day, by the way. Yeah, thank you, Scott. And so finally, when we are looking at your updated map last month, and you have 1 week of conference talking about, and especially thanks to your report, and we put just down the link where everybody can have access to the report. So we know that more or less we have 15% more solutions per year. In the meantime, few percentage also are dying. So what's the key insight finally of this updated survey of 2026? I would say at the edge of the eye.
Yeah, well, when we first started creating that Martech map back in 2011, it was actually just trying to understand what were the specific solutions and specific categories. It had around 150 products at the time, which certainly seemed like a lot back then. As it then started to grow, and it grew exponentially for a number of years, the story became more about, honestly, just like the top line growth. Like, oh my goodness, it's gone from 150 to like 1,000 to 5,000 to 10,000. And like these past couple of years, it's been over 15,000, which is just crazy. But I would say as it moved on, obviously, if you look at a map with like 15,000 little micro dots, not very useful in any way other than to acknowledge that, oh my goodness, this space is insane. But when you analyze the data of what's actually happening with those 15,000, it's interesting because you now get to see where the churn is. Like, one of the things that's always been remarkable about that landscape is while the top line number, remains very large, behind the scenes, this dynamic of consolidation of companies being acquired, companies going out of business, absolutely has been happening the entire time. The only reason that the number has stayed large is because we have all these companies that, exit the market in one form or another. You get a whole bunch of new companies that keep coming in. And so when you start to analyze the data, particularly these past few years, of seeing like, okay, well, where are the most companies going away and where are the most new companies coming into play? So I would say the thing that to me was most interesting in this year's analysis was we saw quite a bit of new entrants or new discoveries in the CMS and e-commerce space, which at some level is ironic because you think, wow, with everything that's happening with AI, there's questions of what the role of the website is and how is it going to change. But when you think a little bit more about it, you're like, actually, that makes a ton of sense as to why there'd be a lot of activity in that space, because the CMS space is actually at an inflection point where it may change how it works and what is possible, and serving not just human visitors, but agent visitors, and how do we optimize for these AI answer engines. And so just a lot of very interesting things happening in that category.
Yeah. I do agree, because in fact, that's also something we see on our side when we are trying to find solution for customers and trying to find the right path to take. So CMS is a portal of a brand at the end of the day. So it's, okay, a lot of things can be done. You have a lot of capabilities with AI, or how to measure, how to optimize the path or of the journey of a visitor by where, and to get some analytics, or an e-commerce just makes sense for. We see that a lot of attraction as soon as we are connected to a PIN system, as for example, which is very important, and sometimes even more important. I'm calling that a glue software. It's just collecting information from input and output, try to organize, to manage properly the life cycle of products, etc. So yes, we do agree. And so now, of course, I'm asking to Raf, so at one stage we need to host the assets. So maybe just after explaining again to our audience what you are doing in detail, and especially DAM news, I think it should be important to get your vision of the evolution of a DAM during, and especially during the last years.
Yeah, sure. I've been in the DAM trade for, I'm not going to say the years anymore because it's getting boring. The mid 1990s, let's leave it at that. As DAM developer, project manager, digital asset manager, and more, not even that recently. The publisher of DAM News, which is basically an industry journal. We cover the vendors and the end user side of the industry, the buy and the sell sides. And what the kind of changing priorities are, and trends, and all that sort of stuff that's going on. Probably recently, it's obviously AI has had a big input onto what's going on. Some of the bigger issues that have been cropping up would be, one of them, what is the DAM interface? If you said to people historically, what is a DAM, people would say, right, okay, well, there's a grid of thumbnails and a search box, and you type stuff in and it comes up with thumbnails and you download them. In the last 3-4 years, since the LLMs have started to come in, it's increasingly been, right, how can we surface these assets through the LLM? And a lot of questions about, is the chat interface, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, all those sort of things, is that the best tool to find your assets, or do you still need the grid of thumbnails? And as ever in IT, the answer is both. One of them is not enough. You need both of them. So there's been that discussion coming up quite a bit, and that's had some interesting implications as well on the people or the vendors who focus on the brand side of things, because it's how important is a dedicated brand guideline system when you can go into Claude and say, right, give me the latest logos. So there's a lot of that kind of discussion going on. The other interesting discussion has been, is the role of the DAM now to query inside what you might call composite assets. So if you've got something like a PDF, that will have text and images, maybe structured drawings, can we find insights by looking into the assets itself? So it's the DAM kind of crossing over, converging with knowledge management, and that side of things. And then, a lot of conflicts about initially metadata that pesky metadata. You need to find those assets. And lots of vendors telling end users you don't need to worry about that anymore. But unfortunately, yes, you do. You need to worry about it even more than you did in the past because the AI needs something to work with. So yeah, there's a lot of double-edged swords, positives, negatives. We live in interesting times, as the Chinese curse says.
Yeah, and because especially I like the approach. We had some customer meetings last week, and one of the things they were asking for new DAM vendor, can I get folders? Which maybe makes sense because when you are working on your machine, you have folders everywhere. It's not well organized most of the time, but you know where you are putting everything, and you have no metadata, in fact. So, and more on the opposite way, you have this LM, you have this open search things, etc. And sometimes we see here is that very often people they are investing a DAM system, but at the end of the day, they cannot find the assets. And sometimes they are donating the assets to upload in SharePoint because they have folders. So, which is a bit crazy sometimes. For your information, but sometimes we are saying that maybe the best DAM vendor is SharePoint, which is not really as it is. But it's also finally at the end of the day all about this customer experience. And from what we see, and maybe from what you see also, because you see so many more solutions, so the customer experience is very important. At the end of the day, if people they are not finding the right path just in a couple of clicks to use the system. We see that with Canva, as for example, which is crazy growing after weeks, just with simple things. And we're all just like us. We have some difficulties to organize the content by way, or to get some advanced search, or to get some links to some meta properties. But how do you see finally when we are finally talking about this? Trying to find the mix between this customer experience, and in the meantime, it's an enterprise system, so you need to use metadata. You need to and finally how the vendors can make the right mix in order to by way to send the right solution. So, what's your thoughts?
I mean, I think put it in the context of what is happening here as a result of AI. There's basically two sides. There's the supply side and the demand side. So on the supply side, AI has just like further expanded the amount of content and data that we're producing, in a variety of ways. Certainly it's been embedded in a whole bunch of products, things like Canva, making it easier and easier for non-professional designers to be creating things that are increasingly starting to be quite compelling. So you just have this explosion of content. And then on the other side of this equation, the demand side, there are just so many new ways in which we can activate this content. Even when you think about it internally, the ability for people who are using systems like Glean or things like this, where they're able to say like, oh yeah, sales enablement information, I am looking for X, and the ability to have X or some variation of X, be able to be surfaced up quickly. It's really cool. You talk about these agentic interfaces that are customer facing. More and more we have these things of like AI SDRs or, shopper concierges or, those chatbots that were all over websites that for many years were really terrible. But now with the conversational capabilities of LLMs and the fact that we're starting to hook them up to better and better systems on the back end, some of those conversational interactions happening with agents on websites are actually getting quite good. But all of it actually depends on the ability to like, okay, well, can I actually get access to the right data, the right content, the right assets? And as you know, from the history of the DAM space, that might sound sort of straightforward at some very, very 50,000 foot level, but the moment you go down, it is an incredibly complex challenge. I mean, all these issues of like, what is the versioning of this? What's the relevance of it? Things that we've tried to help address with metadata, but for many years generally done a pretty bad job, of having the right metadata associated with these things. I don't know, this whole nature of how you manage that ecosystem of this incredible new flood of content and assets coming in, and so many new places where we can actually leverage those content and assets, that I think is actually a great opportunity for the DAM and broadly content management space, which I don't know if you want to talk about it too, but even like what happened with Salesforce acquiring Contentful, sort of points to, how people are thinking about what these possibilities
are. Sure, I think we see a lot of things that make sense between CRM, website, and you have a lot of marketing automation. Just even ourselves, we are using a spot for CRM, but a lot of things are done automatically where you have to do much more before. And finally, if I'm coming back to you, Ralph, so do you think DAM vendors today, they understood this way of managing and this way of what really matters for the customer to make something smart using AI? Because we saw on our side this year a lot about AI agents, etc. Something we don't really see some real business model. It's all about, okay, we need to get the time, we cannot give a price. So it's very difficult for our customers because you have some dreams in front of them. It says magic. You don't need to index. What's the cost? We need to get the time to get information, blah, blah, etc. So what's your vision of the approach, and especially from vendor side with this integration of AI and how to market that, by the way?
I think just to pick up one of Scott's earlier points about consolidation, you've got this weird situation going on. It sounds like across Martech, and that's mirrored across DAM. I mean, you could argue that DAM is like part of, it's got a foot in Martech, but there's also non-Martech applications for it. But the other side of it you've got is simultaneously consolidation and fragmentation taking place at the same time. So you've got you have got these companies buying up other ones, and then you've got at the same time new people coming, or new vendors coming to the market, and it's almost like this sort of amnesia, kind of, oh, no one has ever done this before, and it's like, yes, they have, like they've been doing it for years, for decades, and yes, there's that going on, and I think there's again this what is people questioning what DAM is, and there's not only the consolidation, fragmentation, but people are saying things like, well, our DAM can do these other MarTech related tasks. So you've got DAM vendors looking at themselves as offering, I mean, not so much CMS, things like that, but branding, the metadata management, and certainly with the AI, and especially with the generative AI as well. There's a kind of weird crossover of where some DAMs look like they're on a trajectory to try to become Photoshop, and things like that. And it's, I think if you're a customer, it's very confusing. And of course, the salespeople for all these will say, yes, we can do anything you want. And it's, if you're a customer, you have to be very absolutely laser focused and clear about what you want to do. And really to filter through a lot of what the vendors are saying, because the vendors, most of them will tell you they need to make sales. They will tell you they can do whatever you ask for. Whether or not they actually they can deliver is something you don't want to be finding that out. You don't want to become the guinea pig customer, I would say.
Yeah, and something maybe you can advise for the customer, because on DAM News you have a DAM open specifications by where that is more or less what really matters.
Yeah. There's tools. Yeah, our open specification is one of them, where you can say, right, okay, well, this is the baseline of what we should be expecting, and you can use that to kind of benchmark vendors. And as I said, I would say, like, ask, is this kind of what we would expect from a DAM? Is it core DAM functionality, or are we asking for the kind of hybrid, the flying elephant? I won't say the pig that can fly, but yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, something we can say is
Dumbo.
it's not because you have thumbnail in the window that it's a DAM or a CMS, by the way. Uh,
Yeah.
and so just to end up our conversation, so what could be your insight from for this year, Scott, on your side from the customer perspectives or what you see? Of course, most of the time it's all about AI, new model, etc. But how do you see the market, by the way, for to end up this year?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has always been challenging in Martech is the technology advances at a much faster rate than most companies are actually able to even like absorb and put into practical use, and that's been the case for a while. But in these past couple of years, it's just gotten crazy because, like, sort of the state of the frontier, certainly the AI frontier, but all sorts of knock on effects, of what's actually possible with these products and these technologies has been racing ahead. And honestly, I see a very small percentage of customers, brands, organizations that are really able to, first of all, even like understand what's possible, and much less be able to actually like incorporate it and operationalize it in their organizations. And so I feel like like if you're doing this on a graph of like a distribution curve, I guess it's what they would call a skewed graph, where you have the innovators and the early adopters who are really pushing far, far ahead. The vast majority they're still largely running the same Martech stack that they have been running, still largely operating things the way they have been. And so when I look towards the end of this year, if I just extrapolate from that, I think both things are going to remain true. I think the state of the art of what's going to be possible over the next 6 months is just going to continue to get more fascinating. I mean, every iterations these frontier labs for AI come out with, there's a lot of hype, but there's also a lot of like actual reality of, what these things are making possible. I mean, we could talk about the whole agentic coding or vibe coding thing, which, is a phenomenon unto itself. But at the same time, while that's going to keep racing forward, honestly, I think most organizations are not going to make a significant shift in how they're operating. They don't have the change management, what's the word I'm thinking for? Almost like the constitution, the capability to be able to adapt to it. And that's one of my big questions for this industry as a whole. Like, is that gap between like what the frontier of the technology makes possible and where organizations are in actually adopting this. It feels like that gap just keeps getting wider and wider. And where does that take us?
So thank you, Scott. And it's true, and especially regarding vibe coding, because we had one customer asking for before maybe buying a PIM system, he was asking for maybe I can do the system ourselves. So do you think, Raf, we can do a DAM system in 5 minutes with vibe coding? And by the way, just like Scott, what you are towards 2026, is it something that what we can wait for from the market? Yeah, it's all about the people at the end of the day. And what's something I'm used to say, everything is happening between the chair and the keyboard. So great. So thank you so much, by the way, both of you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Scott. So you are this man of a Martech. And by the way, we are always delighted to get your insights, following you, sharing all your content across so many people. And so the only thing I can say now is, of course, you can still for us, and especially alongside this year, it's the sixth edition of DAM. So that's maybe something I need to talk to you, Scott, because we need to get a visionary statement also during this event. And so, by the way, thank you so much, all of you. So keep following us. Stay tuned with all the content we have across Activo TV. Thank you so much.